so much more impressive than mine. I have the weirdest stuff on my bookshelf. One of these days I need to do like an Instagram tour of all the weird books I have
Of all the weird. Almost everything on this shelf is in the kid lit world.
Yeah.
But you can see I've outgrown it.
Oh, yes. You need another shelf.
I dream of built-ins that span and have a ladder.
That would be amazing.
Would be amazing.
Well, yay. Thank you so much for joining me for this. I'm very excited to talk to you. And I have plenty of questions, and you get an extra long intro because I don't know. I just had a lot to say. So,
okay.
All right. So here we go. Welcome back to Talk Fiction, the podcast dedicated to entertainment media's most overlooked underdogs, fiction writers. I'm your host, Meg Olders, author of C. Smile and creator of the dynamic newsletter anthology, Stock Fiction. My guest today is Jolie Steckley. Jolie is a teacher, consultant, and coach for authors writing books for children. She currently leads 2 certificate courses online for the University of San Francisco's MFA for Young Readers program, and is also the creator of several online courses for authors looking to start, enrich, or advance their careers in writing and publishing. Her offerings include Write Story, Write Mindset, a self-guided course with interactive extras that fuses character and story development with writer mindset, and Write Where You Are, a summer course offered exclusively to former students that provides accountability, community, and momentum for authors looking for a way to move their works in progress forward in good company. An author of children's stories herself, Jolie is an active and honored member of the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and if this introduction hasn't already suggested, a treasured friend and mentor in my own author story. I will provide links to all of Jolie's valuable offerings in the show notes, but without further ado, allow me to introduce my distinguished guest, Jolie Steckley.
Oh,
Yay!
Wow. Hi, Meg.
Woo! Jazz hands.
Jazz hands.
So welcome. This is just the coolest thing. I don't know why I haven't asked you on yet. I guess I was just waiting for the right time to want to talk to you about this. And you just, you're going through some changes in your career. So it seemed a fitting time to sit down and have it out. So before I get into questions, I just want to let you know, and my listeners, anyone who's been listening knows, I've like indirectly mentioned you and Write for Kids like at least a dozen times already on my podcast. And maybe I haven't been direct enough, which is another reason I want you on here, because I want people to know who you are and what you're doing.
Thank you.
Because I was enrolled in that class when I wrote my first 4 YA novels. And the last of those 4 was C. Smile, which is now coming out in February. And I still remember the last meeting we had as a class and doing that final share. And I still remember the scene that I read to everyone. And I don't think I've ever been as consistently motivated or inspired to just write books as I was when I was in that class. So that's not a question so much as a testimonial or maybe just a declaration of my gratitude, and so that listeners know how much I got out of that class.
Well, that makes my heart so happy. And that class, as you did your introduction, is no more. That is the transition I have been part of. I essentially taught that course ongoing about 15 years. It went through some transitions as well, but all of that learning is now going to exist in those courses I'm offering at the University of San Francisco.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Are you a little sad you can't call it Write for Kids anymore?
I don't know. I mean, I think that there is a part of me that really needed to break away from what that was and step into this new thing, which even though it is everything that I know and have taught and I will carry with me into this new program, it is different. And it is kind of stepping into something new. So I think it needs to be called something new. And it's not just my thing. It's part of something so much bigger than just what I'm doing, which makes it even more exciting.
Fantastic. Yeah. So in season 1 of the podcast, I started every single episode with a celebrations and frustrations segment. And this is where I always gave credit to you and the class because that's where it came from. So before we would start every class with Jolie, we would all go around, and if we had something to share, either a celebration or something that was frustrating us, whether it be in our writing life or our actual life, and we would have a chance to share that. So it was a really fun thing I did with my guests, but what I found was it took up a little bit more time than which is fine. But that's why I ended up not doing it in season two. But I do, in honor of your visit, want to bring that back today. And you're such a pro at it. You can probably get yours out in a, in a reasonable amount of time. And I'll try to do that too.
Well, I do love it. I mean, it's something that I bring to like all of my classes and a lot of life now. And I find that some of the most rich conversation comes out of sharing celebrations and frustrations
Hmm.
because light bulbs come on and they're just are little nuggets that we can explore more.
Absolutely.
I definitely have celebrations and frustrations to share.
Good.
I'll start with celebrations. And the thing that I love about celebrations and frustrations is sometimes they live in the same bucket.
Hmm.
Like something that we're frustrated about is also a reason to celebrate.
Oh, yeah.
But my biggest celebration right now is I have just returned from San Francisco, from the University of San Francisco, where the very first inaugural residency of the MFA in writing for young readers took place. And I got to participate in that and be part of this flourishing brand new community that's just going to grow with just the most stellar faculty you can ever imagine. So I was there like learning and connecting, and it was just such a treat.
Awesome.
So that's my big celebration. Frustration is that while I was there, I did get a few rejections for a picture book manuscript that went out
Oh,
recently on Boo!
like
But
just came in through like your email, you mean, like while you were
yes,
there?
my
Oh,
agent sent me was like, we've received a few passes, and with the notes that came along with them, they were lovely. They were champagne rejections, but it is just that note of like love this, but
yeah.
there is something else that we just have that on the list that would compete with this, and those some of those reasons that are like timing wise. I loved
Yeah.
this, wish the timing was different for it. Those are a little bit of a ouch, but
Yeah, you're
also
like, why didn't I send it 5 minutes earlier that day? You know,
I
you
know
wonder
it's
how
like,
close they're talking when they're talking about timing.
why does this manuscript sit like in a pocket that is like filled, can be easily filled?
Right.
So that felt both celebratory and frustrating. And then my final one, Meg, is one that you, I think, will connect with as well, as I am working on a revision of a YA that's complicated and trying to like take apart and put back together something that's very complicated. And it just takes more time
Yeah.
than you wish it would take. And it's
Yep.
hard to figure out. It's just hard to figure.
Agreed.
That's mine.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yes, I'm at the point now where all of my edits are done for Dot. So now it's in the hands of copy editors and all that
Yeah.
stuff. But now I'm sitting here going, okay, I've been putting off starting a new book for like
Yeah.
4 years. And pretty soon I'm going to be getting the, oh, what are you doing next question. So like I have the idea. It's just it's a weird like paralysis right now. I'm like, can I do this again? It doesn't matter how many times I've done it before. I just my brain's telling me maybe you can't do it again. Maybe that was it or something, you know? So I have to sort of push through that at some point and just sit down and start putting words down and who cares what they are and whether they're beautiful and all that jazz.
I think there's also something about finishing up a novel that's got all the pieces in the right places and that feels so polished to go back into something that's so messy.
Right.
Yeah, it's a really hard shift to make.
And just knowing how many years it took to get this one where it is.
Right.
It's like, okay, how old am I now? Like I start like looking at the clock of my life and being like, can I do this like every 4 years or 4 or 5 years thing? But sometimes that's how it goes.
Yeah, and you don't always remember like how you did it, and how you
Yeah,
like got to that end point might not be the same as the way you got there before.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
I know because I've learned a lot since then. So I'm going to start implementing all that stuff I've learned. So I'll start with my frustration because it's really silly and it just happened this morning. It has nothing to do with writing. I got a call today that my wonderful hairdresser going on maternity leave like a month earlier than originally planned. So I had to like reschedule with someone I've never gone to before. And I did reschedule, but I'm kind of doing that thing. I'm like, maybe I can survive until January without getting my hair colored because it's the worst when those people leave. They're so important for some reason. Well, I know
Yes,
why. It's like you trust them with your
totally.
self-image and she was lovely and the constant change is frustrating. Sometimes I just want people to stay with me because I'm very loyal when it comes to finding someone who can handle my hair. So,
And there is something to take from that for story.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll find a way to, yes, think of how that works for my writing too. But it seems very superficial on the outside. I'm sure it's deeper than that. And then my celebration is I have been working steadily trying to grow my Instagram following.
Mhm.
And it's been challenging. I'm working with some wonderful people. I'm, spending a little bit of money to like get into a tier where I'm getting like one-on-one coaching and things like that. And it's been really good and it's a great community, but that social media continues to sort of frustrate me. So what I recently set out to do was just post something every day
Mhm.
until I reach 500 followers, which is not very many. Right now I have around 250. So I'm like hoping to double what I have. And what I'm hoping is not that I'm posting every day is the reason I'm going to get those followers, but it's going to help me like get better at doing all of it quicker and with less fatigue. It's just every time I post, it's like I spent too much time on this.
Yeah,
And I just want to get to the point where I'm not doing that
yeah.
anymore. So if posting every day, because what it makes me do is like it could be 5 o'clock at night, and I'm like, crap, I haven't posted yet. I got to do something. And it it makes me think quicker, just having that like teeny deadline like sitting
Mhm.
there. So I'm like 4 days in and I'm doing okay. So far, I've only had like one tech meltdown because sometimes it's like I know what I want to do, but like the stuff I'm using doesn't want to
Yeah,
help me do it. That's where
yeah.
like a lot of my frustration comes from. But I'm just celebrating the fact that so far, 4 days in, which is, not super impressive, but for me it is. I haven't, fallen apart or given up on it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so
I
that's my little
see I
celebration.
see you on there a lot. That's impressive.
Yeah.
It's hard to put yourself out there, but it is a bigger time suck than you ever think it's going to
Yeah.
be. Like I'm just going to do this little Instagram post and then, 2 hours later, you're
Yeah, you're
like
like, I've like,
finally
it's the
getting it
second
posted.
guessing, like, oh, what if someone reads this the wrong way? Or what if there's a typo in there? I got to go look at it again. And then the other thing I decided to do to help with like focusing on that is I'm taking like a step back from my newsletter. And that's more to
Mhm.
give myself permission to not just post on my newsletter less, but also like engage with everyone else's newsletters less. Because on Substack, like part of the culture is read for read. You know what I mean? It's a lot of you got to get in there and be in everyone's comments and that's how you like grow and I'm like I just don't have the time to do that
Totally.
and write another book.
Right.
That's part
Yeah.
of the reason I think that I haven't written one yet because I'm involved in these other spaces that just take a lot of bandwidth and I'm realizing that it's okay to take a step back and those people ideally will still be there when I return and if they're not, maybe they weren't meant to be. So, but
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of a mushed up frustration and
I,
celebration in there.
and I think it's one so many people identify with because we're
Mhm.
told so often that we need to be online, but sometimes you can't do the stuff you need to do, like the writing.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we'll get to more of that in a little bit too. So, on with our questions. Thank you for doing that with me, by the way. That was lovely to go back and do that again. I feel like I can always think of a celebration and a frustration like any day of the week. So, it's a great exercise to just loosen us up.
Love it.
So, you are both a writer and teacher of children's books. And I'm curious which passion developed for you first? Like growing up, did you think I'm going to be a writer or I'm going to be a teacher? And like around how old were you when those thoughts started cropping up for you?
It was definitely teacher.
Really?
I think that I am a teacher at heart, and I have loved everything teaching in classroom since I started school. Maybe even since my preschool days, which was called Snoopy School. I still even remember Snoopy
Oh,
School.
Snoopy school.
But like getting into then elementary school, like, I was the kid who played school. and
Yeah.
teacher. And I loved a chalkboard. I still remember my own little chalkboard I had at home, like just
Mhm.
chalk, white chalk and a
Yep.
chalkboard, like getting to be in the classroom with my teacher and write on the board and erase the board. That is what I would like to do at recess, quite
Yeah.
honestly, rather than being out playing ball. Uh, so I've just always been drawn to teaching. And that is, once I graduated college, actually, I went back to school and got my master in teaching.
Hmm.
And that led me to teaching elementary school. I started my career as a classroom teacher.
Okay.
When I left teaching after having kids and found my way. It was teaching, actually, elementary school, that made me fall in love with kids'
Yeah.
books. I wasn't much of a reader as a kid. Like, to think that there was a job called writer wasn't even in my frame of knowledge, except for one memory I have as a sixth grader when an author came, I don't even know who it was, came and talked to our classroom. And I still remember writing this very detailed description. And I think it was about like hiding a diary under a mattress, and had like this whole like page or two. And I remember the writer coming over and like giving me a compliment, but I remember feeling so exhausted by it. Like,
Yeah.
this was a lot of fun, but man, that's a lot of words to
Hard.
write. That's like
Yeah.
as far as my brain thought about writing. But
Yeah.
when I especially fell in love with picture books and middle grade novels, reading to my first and second graders, and then like becoming a mom, that's what lit up like, oh, I think I want to make books for these
Hmm.
small people.
Yeah.
And then it did spread into YA, which that all took me by surprise. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it definitely started with teaching.
Wonderful. Well, that's a surprise to me and a pleasant one too. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. So you and I met each other during the pandemic or the tail end. In fact, I would say the only reason I was able to meet you and take part in your class was because that was the first year that SCBWI did their annual summer conference virtually. It was the big
Yeah.
one, the 5.0 50-year one, if I remember
Yeah.
correctly. And so normally that conference would be held in Los Angeles. And of course, at the time, I was not in a position to buy a plane ticket and go to LA. And I was kind of new to SCBWI. So it made it more accessible for me that it was virtual. And then, of course, I met you at orientation, and that led me to your class. And I think, it's safe to say that COVID forever changed how we access and engage in education. And it also changed, what it means to be a working writer. This thing we were talking about being online and being accessible and engaging constantly because we quote unquote can do that. The expectation is that we're all going to be doing that. So I want to know how your approach to teaching changed when the world went virtual. And given what you've learned from staying in that format, would you ever want to go back to in-person teaching if that opportunity presented itself?
Yeah, it's such a good and interesting question. And my path was a fortuitous one. I loved teaching in person. I started at the University of Washington, and I do not live in Seattle. And so where I live requires a ferry ride and a commute, but I would take one day a week and I would make that trek, and I'd spend a whole day in the city, and I would get back very late at night. But it was such a delightful day and I loved it so much. But through the course of all of that teaching at the University of Washington, and then they disbanded their writing programs. It was kind of a mess. And I kind of took it out on my own. And I found a public space that I could rent to
Hmm.
continue to teach Write for Kids, which had been a certificate program at the University of Washington. But in all those years that I was teaching the program and had those opportunities to be at places like SCBWI conferences, I continually had people saying to me, I wish I could take your class.
Yeah.
And so I did something then that I am learning to do more and more, which is to trust my nudges. And I was like, why can I not bring people into my class? Like this is when Zoom, kind of earlier days of Zoom. And I was
Hmm.
like, there's a way to do this. And so I was still teaching in person in this little classroom space, but I invited people to Zoom in.
Yeah.
And so There was half of our class sitting at desks. All of us still had our computers open, and we were Zooming people in.
Mm-hmm.
This was the 1920 school year, 1999, 1999. Oh my goodness, not 1999.
No, why can't I think of what it is?
2019 to
Yes. Wow,
2020.
you were really ahead of the curve. I don't
My brain really just went back.
That's
19 to
okay.
20. It's as you know, a full year is a school year's course, fall,
Mm-hmm.
winter, spring. And so that was the year I went hybrid. And so I
Yeah.
had half in person, some people zooming in.
Yeah.
And then came March 2020. We were already halfway there.
Yeah.
And so it was so easy for us to transition to just all being on Zoom. So in the spring, we were just all on Zoom. And of course, that carried through into, the fall of 2020 into 21. And I
Mm-hmm.
remained online. And that's just how it stayed
Yeah.
for a couple of reasons. I think it was COVID also timed with my age and time in life, it just changed me, as I know a lot of people changed. And I was just like, I don't think that I can go back to that long day and returning to my house after a
Yeah.
long drive at midnight. I don't think my body can do that safely anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got the access to keep doing it this way. And frankly, it allowed me to bring in students like you.
Yeah.
If I was still just teaching in Seattle for people who could meet me in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
my world would be a whole lot smaller than it is
Yeah.
today. So,
And ours would be too. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So it was the timing of it ended up somehow being really fortunate for me
Yeah.
and how I was already moving.
Yeah. That was interesting that you were kind of one step ahead of the universe on that.
Um,
You're like, I'm just gonna do this for people that don't even live here. And then all of a sudden everybody had to figure out how to do that. And you already do what you were doing. So
we were already doing it. Yeah. So lucky.
yeah, fantastic. So I'd like to know because since I've taken Right for Kids, you've developed two new courses, and I've done Right Story, Right Mindset with you once. I haven't done the summer course yet, although one of these days it's going to time perfectly with when I'm needing it. And I know I'm going to take advantage of it because I'm always like on the cusp. I'm like, should I do this? But this summer we're going away. We're going overseas for like weeks. So I would be not super able to focus on it. But I think they're both like brilliant ideas and obviously just sort of come out of what you are already doing for your Right for Kids or your certificate kids. So how do you approach an idea for a new course like that? Or rather, how does it approach you? Is it anything like when you get an idea for a story in terms of how you brainstorm and plan for an entirely new class?
I think that there's similarities and yet it's not the same. I think all my courses have really grown out of a need.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the starting of Right for Kids grew from me teaching one segment of the university's certificate program. I was fall session. And then eventually I had all three of the sessions and I took them with me into the world. But how both of those classes came to be is because I would finish teaching a year of programming with students and they were like, but where's the next year? Like, we need more.
Yeah.
And the university was never, people were saying that way back in the certificate days, like there needs to be a second year of the certificate. But they weren't going to bring that on. And honestly, I was also not going to bring on a second year of like
Right.
coursework and developing curriculum for a whole other year. But I was like, I should be able to do something. Like, how can I fill this need? So it just started with offering the space of community, and we were still meeting in person back then when I started the summer classes, and they were just, each time I did it, it was like, what do I want to explore this summer? And so it usually kind of was based around some sort of topic that I had in mind, or even a craft book that we might explore. And in doing that, what I found was that every summer I was developing a new class, and it
Mm-hmm.
was exhausting.
Yeah.
So much work. But
Yeah.
the one year that something really cool came out of it was the year I developed Right Story, Right Mindset, which is not what I called it at the time. But as a writing teacher and coach who was consistently working with students and often meeting with them one-on-one, I felt like I was more often working on mindset with writers than the actual craft.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is what we need. But there was also a moment in time I was working on my own mindset, not just my writer mindset, but just me personally, my mindset.
Yep.
And I was digging in deep with myself, and I was like, this is just character and story.
Yeah.
I mean, everything I'm exploring here all taps into what we do with story, except that when we're working, like, let's say on a YA novel, we let things get pretty bad. We're trying to kind of do the opposite for ourselves.
Right. Yes. We can treat our characters a little more roughly.
Yeah. But I started thinking, what if we look at these two things side by side? And so I spent a summer doing that. And I was like, oh, I just kind of intuitively created this thing that I think is really cool. And so, I think in the same way that we do with story, like I'm always revising. Like anytime I reteach a class, I'm looking at it again and I'm adding from, I'm different each time I teach something. I've learned something more. I might have a different approach. So I'm always revising what I'm teaching as I go. So I revised this a bit and taught it again. And then when I did that, I was like, this actually, I think would work better. And I can't remember, Meg, if you took the live version with me where I actually taught in person or you watched pre-recorded.
It was videos during the week, but then we had a weekly Zoom.
So that's when, in teaching it live twice, I realized I think that this is a better course for people to sit with the content and the exercises on their own because it's too much to think about and do in class together, and then come together after you've kind of had the content. That took me a good bit of time to figure out how to do that and actually then get it on a platform. That was a huge amount of work and a huge learning curve that taught me a lot.
Yeah.
But so, there are similarities. That's the biggest course that's really happened that way. And that was a big push to make that happen. The Right Where You Are really kind of came out of all of that and continued to be like, I want to be able to keep getting this community of writers together. People I know already have the foundational knowledge that we can come into a space and just talk about like elements of the writing process and craft, with knowing everybody kind of has the same language. There's, no green questions in the room. We can just talk about these things.
Right.
But I needed to do it in a way that made me still have my summer.
Yeah.
So, write WRITE where you are is like just coming into the summer where you are with your writing and allowing the content that I share to meet you where you're at. And so it is something in a way that I am winging. Like each week, I'm like, what's on my mind right now? Like, this is what I'm going to bring to the table and we're going to talk about, and people can present me any questions or topics they just want to hear me speak to. And then if there's any time left, I do a little bit of, ask me anything. So I found a way to be like in the teaching spot and gathering community, while still giving myself space to do my work and not like spending hours planning 2 hours of content.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the mindset class was brilliant, the way you set it up to just people can fit it into their schedules, because that's tricky too, because I'm on the East Coast, you're on the West Coast. So like, I think with that class, actually, you were meeting at it was late for me, I remember. And I think I only went to the first one and the last one because it was like late at night for us on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Maybe you met at 7. I don't remember
It
exactly,
could have been.
but yeah.
I will give an update to that. And if I can give it a little plug, I also, again, thinking about like my time and how other people might approach the class. I just this summer have decided I'm going to offer it twice a year. I'm offering it every June. So I'm offering it right now. It's just open for people to buy the course through the end of the month. And it's 100% self-guided.
Okay.
So this is going to be a little different from how you took it, where we worked through it in weeks, and now people will just work through it in modules. So like they could work through a module a day if they wanted and do it in 8 days instead of 8 weeks.
Right.
That would be kind of a lot, but
Yeah.
you know how much there is in there.
Yes.
But it's letting people who maybe don't necessarily want the interaction of a cohort group through a forum or weekly live meetings, or to do it over the span of 8 weeks, to just do it at their own timing. And then in January, I'll offer it the way that you did it. And this past January, I did offer an earlier meeting time. I think we did like 11 a.m. Pacific time. So I'll probably do something a little earlier. So it gives people both opportunities. Like, do you just want to like ride solo and process it all by yourself? Like June is the time, like grab it now. And it's a little less expensive when you do it that way too, because I'm not having to commit any extra time for it.
Right.
In January, which is just kind of a nice time because, first of the
year. New year. Yeah.
Then you've got a cohort group to interact with online, and an hour a week where you just get a little bit more and we can talk through some things and I can give some nudges.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the nudges are definitely helpful. So am I on the marketing question yet? I'll go to that right now because I have a suspicion about what I think your most, successful form of marketing is, but I'm not going to say it out loud. I'm going to wait and see.
Okay.
What
You'll have to tell me if I answer.
Yes. So if you could tell us what has been the most successful marketing strategy for you for reaching and recruiting new students to these classes.
Yeah. Well, I think my marketing and path is unique to me. And I think I'm fortunate in so many ways. When I started teaching, I was teaching again at the University of Washington, and it was a well-known program that kind of fed itself, right? But then when I took it out, took all that I had created for that program out on the road by myself, I did have to reach out to the world.
Yeah.
What did I have though in my pocket? This was Seattle based at the time, is I had a community already, and it really came from the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And, before I was in that position of teaching this course, I had been one of the regional advisors. So I was known in the writing community and had some reach in that way. And even though we were no longer at the University of Washington, I think one of my very best tools of marketing has been word of mouth.
That was what I was going to say.
Okay. Yeah. And
that was my guess. Yeah.
I have so many people who have taken my course who just say it to two other people. And so many are like, I'm here because Meg told me I needed to take this class.
Yeah.
So often that's the case. And if it's not that, the other way it happens is how you found me, which is people see me at something like the orientation that I do for the SCBWI, either both online and at the in-person conferences. And people are like, oh, I think that I would like to work with her. Or they get on my email list and I share what I'm offering. So I usually get people one of those two ways. Somebody sent me, or I saw you and I knew I wanted to take a class of yours.
Yes. I have to say that orientation gig was pretty sweet for you. Are you still doing it?
Absolutely. And so, I mean, I adore doing orientation. And that came because I had been regional advisor out here in Western Washington and created that for our own region. And Lynn Oliver, who is the co-founder of the SCBWI, was at that conference. And she said, you need to do this for our LA conferences. And so they started bringing me, and I've done it ever since, but it helps people so much.
It really does.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's a big conference. Even the virtual one, I was kind of like, I don't know what to expect here. And I'll always remember this piece of advice, and you probably still give it, which is when you go to a conference like that, your goal should be to have one takeaway.
Yep.
We both put up one finger. No one can see this because it's just audio, but yes, one takeaway that is going to stick with you, because I think a lot of people just feel overwhelmed with the amount of content that they take in, the amount of information. And I always go home with like a binder full of notes, and
Yep.
then it's a year before I go back and look at all of it. But that one little thing that somebody said, a keynote speaker or just one of the presenters, it really does help.
I'll phrase it a little bit differently because
Hmm.
and I think it's so true because I think we take in a lot and we do take all those notes and we can access them later. But I think like when we go into, even if it's just a 1 hour webinar of something, but especially when it's a big event, it's just saying, what was the one thing I was meant to hear? Like, what's that one thing that I really needed right now? And
Hmm.
so I even know I had that same feeling when I was just 8 days of total immersion and just great info at the USF this past week. And I know what I needed to hear. I know what I'm bringing home. There's so much more in my notes that I'll access later,
Right.
but that one thing is where I start and how I don't get overwhelmed by it all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to say too that the switch to virtual conferences has made such a difference in how much you're able to participate in. Because I know with SEBWI and other conferences I've been to do the same thing. If you buy the ticket, you get access to everything.
Everything.
Whereas when you were used to walk through these things, you could only, I mean, they'd have things simultaneously, so you'd have to make a choice like, do I go to this or do I go to this? And you don't have to choose anymore. You can get all of it in any of these ones that go virtual. So I do think that's a plus.
And speaking of, the virtual summer conference is coming up.
Is it in August?
Yeah, the
It's usually
first
in August.
weekend of August. So I think it's like July 31st to August 2nd. And if you are new there, come and meet me in orientation.
Yes, absolutely do. I just have to like admit to you, and maybe I'll cut this part out of the interview because I'm embarrassed, but I have let my membership lapse. I just got overwhelmed with all the different resources that were throwing classes at me, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't, and there's a membership fee, which is not exorbitant, but I was spending a lot of money in other spaces. So
Yeah.
I do need to re-up my membership because
Yes.
I
And
miss.
I'm going to encourage you to also so
Yes.
that your book can be submitted to things like the Crystal Kite and Golden
Yeah.
Kite Awards.
Now, does that mean I'm going to be a PAL member if I pay for that membership?
Yes,
Is
it
that published and
will.
listed?
You'll be
Yeah,
published and
see?
listed now.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that is exciting.
I think it might be time. And
All
you
right.
shouldn't be embarrassed. I mean, that's something that, we go through things and surges and, there are times to come back.
Yeah.
Might
And
be.
I've always, ever since I became a member and started attending the conferences, I've always wanted to someday maybe be on a panel or something. So I better get in there and start rubbing elbows again so
Yeah,
that people know who I am and what I'm doing.
definitely.
Plus, it's just so cool that my whole origin story for C. Smile came out of the conference and you and
Yeah.
comes back around. So it's
Yep.
cool when that happens.
Yep.
Yeah,
STBWI success story in many ways.
I know. Very fun. Here's, well, it sounds like a simple question, but only because it's not very many words. But what would you say is the most challenging aspect of teaching writers specifically, and
Mhm.
what is the most rewarding for you?
The most challenging thing is I want to say meeting people where they are. And I guess I mean that in a way of I have 25 years now of experience being in this industry. And,
Hmm.
you over those years and putting in the hours accumulate a lot of knowledge. And there is a level of frustration of wishing I could just download all of that to you like right now.
Yeah.
And so it's being able to meet everybody right where they're at and bring them forward from A to B to C instead of trying to like jump them from A to Z
Right.
all at once. There
Hmm.
is like a progression, and you might even remember me saying this in the fall because it's something the fall of Right for Kids is like I wish I could give it to you all right now. I wish I could explain to you all of what's coming, and it's just impossible. There we all have
Right.
to go on this journey and we all start at different places, and so that's another challenge is like I can have a whole group coming in together and I'm meeting everybody at a different place. So
Right.
class can start and somebody can be entirely so brand spanking new to the industry, and somebody could be working on this for 3 years already. And so it's meeting both of those needs within the same group. So that's probably my biggest challenge. My biggest reward is definitely, there are a couple. The greatest reward, though, I would say of all, is just the community that comes out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't think I anticipated this when I initially started teaching, but I could get choked up. The community that has come from these classes and creating those summer classes where the different years could interconnect and create relationships. And
Yeah.
in just this, we finally had our first in-person SCBWI Western Washington conference this last spring. And I was able to have an in-person get together at a little local restaurant, and just all of those people through the years coming together, and knowing that there are people there from the very first class I taught at the University of Washington. And they all know, you could connect with people who were part of the Right for Kids classes, not your year, and you just have something to connect with. And it's they're like, are you a Jolie person? I'm a Jolie person. And just
Yes,
to have me be that connector. And so they started, there is my branding, I've got this little bird, and bird has also been connected to orientations at SCBWI. And so a former student was like, we're the Jolie peeps, connecting the peeps with the birds. And I mean, honestly, that's the best. And celebrating all of your successes, because Meg, when you sell your book, that feels like I just sold a book. It really does. This shelf is all student works, and the amount of stuff that is coming, I need a bigger shelf, as we were talking about pre-podcast. I need a bigger bookshelf. I've gotten to see so many successes, and they feel like my wins too.
Yeah.
I think they call that mirror neurons firing. I get that same, I've got goosebumps. I get that same joy from that.
Yeah.
And then this is a selfish one, but the other reward is that I learn so much. My job is to teach and work with other writers. And the saying, you want to learn to do something well, teach somebody else. It's what I do all day long. And so I just get to be part of the learning, and everybody I work with teaches me something. And so I just so
that's awesome. Well, that's sort of similar to the reason that I do the podcast, because I'm not looking for this to blow up and make me famous. For me, every time I sit down and talk to somebody, I'm talking to them because they know more about something than I do. And I always just get so much from just having an hour-long conversation. Mm-hmm. And also it provides entertaining discourse for someone else to listen to and learn, from both of us talking about our experience. And so it works double. But for me, it's just freaking fun. And it's an opportunity to bring my favorite people on my show, because I can do that because it's mine. Oh, so awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So lastly, I want to talk to you about your creative writing, because I knew you as a teacher first. And because of how good you are at teaching and how successful your teaching career has been, I imagine it's hard for you to remember or get others to remember that you're also a writer. You're a novelist, you're agented, and you recently had a short story published. I'll put a link to it in the post. And I want to know, and I'm sure everyone else wants to know, how do you make space to nurture your own dreams of becoming a published author while working so damn hard and so diligently to help other authors achieve their dreams?
Yeah. It's funny. I can't remember who I was talking to about this. I think it was somebody when I was just in San Francisco, about sometimes some of the best writing teachers don't have a lot on the shelf. That would be me. But it's really hard. But I think that it's really similar to anybody who works a full-time job and has a full life. I'm dealing with the same things. I have to carve out time for my own work and make it a priority. But sometimes that priority doesn't look like what a 40-hour work week looks like. I'm still giving more time to my clients and my students than I am to my own work, just like you would if you were working any sort of other job outside of writing. So that might be giving it priority to say, I'm going to give it at least 15 minutes today. I definitely haven't had as much time for my writing. I think one of the bigger challenges that connect with the fact that I am working in the writing world and writing is sometimes my brain is so busy working on other people's stories that I forget to work on my own. So like I will be, I know, meeting with a client or have just read something by a student. And, so when I'm like taking the walk or going for the shower, when your brain is kind of like churning.
Yeah. You're thinking of somebody else's stuff and not your own. Yeah.
And also it's easier for me. Like I can much more clearly see what a story needs that I am not close to than my own. It's a much different skill.
Yep.
Really different, which is a lot of reasons too. There are a lot of agents and editors who are also writers, but they too maybe don't have a ton on the shelf. I've had conversations with editors who are like, I can't do that. Like I can help somebody make the best book, but to like actually write one and put it out in the world, I don't know how to do that. Like I can't.
Yeah.
It's very, very different. But so I think very, very similar to what most people do, but just with this kind of interconnection of like the same world that adds a little bit more complication. But I am also finding a little bit more freedom and focus, and I'm having to find this and push this for myself of letting go of some things to make more space for my own writing.
Yep.
Including like I'm doing less coaching. I'm not bringing this summer. I'm not saying yes to adding any more people to my coaching list. I am still taking consultations. So if anybody needs to do that, it's like just a one-time booking. Then I am. So I really have been recently moving into a focus of, okay, my teaching career has blossomed. Like this is lovely. And there's more happening and I'm still growing in this space. But now it's time for me to give my own writing more room to bloom.
Yep. Yeah. And that's like, I feel like that's a constant tug of war, because when one thing's going really well, you don't want to like lose momentum or, lose the trajectory of it growing. But then you can kind of feel the things that are sort of withering in the background and you want to go back and tend to them.
Yeah. And there's also a balance of taking a risk, because just like with anybody else, it's like the teaching and the coaching and the consulting is part of what pays the bills.
Yeah.
And the writing, not so much, unless like something happens.
Pays your soul's bills, just not your actual bills.
It is letting go of some guaranteed like income to make room for something that can be bigger down the road. And that can be scary. And doing it at the same time, I let go of a sure thing with Write for Kids. Like Write for Kids was going to be able to keep rolling.
Yeah. I believe it.
Moving into something brand new and letting go of that was hard to let go of. But I knew my instinct, my gut was like, yes, you say yes to this, even though it's.
Yeah. That's good. Trusting the nudges.
Trust the nudges.
Good advice. All right. Well, that's the end of my questions. So unless you had anything else you wanted to share with listeners about anything, I think we can probably put a pin in this and, I don't know, chat again sometime when you get your first book under contract.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I kind of want to hear about your YA novel, so maybe we can talk about that off the air. Thank you so much, Jolie, for being here. And I think my plan is to get this out a week from Friday. So it'll be right before the holiday weekend, but hopefully people will be on the road. It'll be a good time for people to plug in and have a listen. And so I'll let you know. And I also already told my girls from Write for Kids 21-22 year that I would share it with them. So they'll come in and have a listen too. And feel free to share it with all your other former students in your newsletter so they can hear you talk about how fabulous you are, as if they don't already know.
We'll also be part of growing, Instagram. And so I will be sharing in all those spaces too, Meg, because these connections make things bigger.
Absolutely. We'll collaborate. Hey there! Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, you can let me know by hitting the like button, leaving a comment, rating, or review, depending on where you're listening, or by sharing this podcast with your favorite people. Talk Fiction is part of a dynamic anthology of short fiction, essays, poetry, humor, and multimedia experiments written and produced by me, Meg Olders. If you're into the stuff I'm making, or you're just into supporting the dynamic individual who makes it, I hope you'll consider becoming a free or paid subscriber at megolders.substack.com. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.